it's Lara from Q Skin. So this is a video that we're going to talk about acne and how acne is formed and the ins and outs around acne. And later on we're also going to talk about how we're going to start treating acne and control acne within the skin. Now, acne is a very personal topic to me. I've had it my whole life, and unfortunately, acne is mostly a genetic predisposition. So what that means is it would have been passed down from someone in your family, and that someone is my dad. So what it means is genetically there are certain malfunctions or functions within the skin that aren't working as effectively or correctly like they should be. And we're going to focus on the pathology of acne and the 4 contributing factors to acne. So the first contributing factor is got to do with the hair follicle and the pilosebaceous unit. And interestingly enough, the hair within your hair follicle is actually used as almost like an elevator to carry the sebum up from the sebaceous gland up onto the hair, nourishing the hair, but also then coming onto the surface of the skin, which actually is what is protecting and nourishing our skin. Now, the malfunction there is in an acne predisposed skin, the hair is either non-existent or the hair is incredibly weak and is not strong enough to carry up the sebum up to the surface of the skin. So that's one of the contributing factors. I want you to keep that in your memory box because it'll make sense when we talk about the other contributing factors. The second contributing factor to acne is a buildup of dead skin, or what we call as hyperkeratosis. So hyper meaning too much or too many, and keratosis is dead skin cells. So the malfunction here is in a skin cell's life cycle, it starts at the basal layer of the epidermis and it progresses up the layers of the skin until it gets to the top surface layer of the skin, and it eventually desquamates or sloughs off, and that naturally happens. Of course, it can slow down because of our current lifestyles and all those contributing factors, which we'll talk about later. But generally, the lifestyle cycle is to just progress through the layers of the skin. In the beginning of the skin cell's life cycle, they are attached to each other, and it is attached by a bond called a desmosome bond. And eventually, as it progresses through the layers of the skin, the desmosome bond will break down and detach the skin cells from each other. And the skin cells then become independent and single and free. And naturally then would be easier to slough off once it reaches the surface of the skin. The malfunction in an acne skin is that desmosome bond doesn't break. So as the skin cells are progressing through the layers of the skin, they are still attached to each other and building up layers of skin because they are not sloughing off. They're not independent skin cells that can easily slough off. They're holding on to each other. So you can imagine in a hair follicle, you've got skin cells obviously on the surface of your skin, but also within the hair follicle itself. Now, this buildup of dead skin cells constantly building up over time is going to eventually cause a blockage within that hair follicle and closing the opening of that hair follicle, creating in the hair follicle an anaerobic environment. So that's the second contributing factor, is a buildup of dead skin cells and therefore causing a blockage over the hair follicle. The third factor is sebum. Now, the malfunction within an acne skin with sebum is the changing of the sebum, and that is because of hormones. And the culprit here is really testosterone and a little enzyme that converts this sebum into a thick, sticky sebum. So it's not a normal lubricating type of sebum that we would have in normal skin, but it is more of a thicker, stickier consistency. So are you piecing the puzzle together? We've got no elevator to carry the sebum. We've got a blockage now into the opening of my hair follicle. And now the factory is producing thick, sticky sebum that is still being pumped into the hair follicle but has nowhere to go. You get different stages of acne. You get your comedone phase, which is really just this slow buildup of dead skin and a little bit of sebum, but you still got oxygen coming through into the follicle. And that's what we kind of get in a blackhead, as you would call it. But as the stages progress, because more dead skin cells are forming and more sebum is being produced, you would then start getting a closed comedone, then to a papule, and then to a pustule, which sounds really gross and sounds kind of like those pimples that we love to squeeze. And when this pustule is forming, that is where the fourth contributing factor comes in. And that factor is bacteria, your Propionibacterium. Now, naturally, we have bacteria living in our follicle, but he lives quite comfortably and stays to himself because oxygen is coming through into the follicle normally. But in an acne lesion, because we've now got that blockage and this thick, sticky sebum, that is when bacteria thrives, and bacteria is proliferating because it is having a party in your follicle. The lights are off. It's warm, there's no oxygen coming through. It is growing and expanding because it is just having a fat party with the sebum and dead skin cells. And unfortunately now, with bacteria that has infected this follicle, the skin has now recognized and the body has recognized there's a infection happening within this follicle. And that's when the acne lesion progresses into that pustule, so an infected, inflamed lesion that is red and sore and swollen. Sometimes we say throbbing infection on our skin. And that is really the final buildup of this acne lesion. So the bacteria has now caused the skin to become inflamed because that's your body's immune system sending all the ambulances to this follicle because of the sebum, dead skin, and bacteria, and has caused that acne lesion on the skin. And from a pustule, it can even develop into a cyst or nodular acne, and that is really advanced acne and has been recommended to only be treated by a professional, of course, a doctor or dermatologist. So have you got that image in your head now with this huge swollen follicle, thick sticky sebum, buildup of dead skin, and bacteria that's having a big fat party in your follicle?